Hey everyone, and welcome back to the deep dive. We're diving into something that feels, I don't know, kind of sci-fi, but it's a total today problem, right? We're talking AI prompting. You guys sent in a ton of stuff on this, and honestly, even I was surprised by how much this is, like way more than just typing into a chatbot.
Right. It's almost like we're all learning this new language, the language of AI.
Okay, so elaborate on that.
Well, just like with any language, becoming fluent, it unlocks all these possibilities. But then there are also like rules and nuances, even, dare I say it, cultural quirks when it comes to AI and how it works.
Okay, see, now you've got me hooked. Are you saying just knowing the words isn't enough?
Exactly. Think about you can give someone a dictionary, right? That doesn't make them Shakespeare. We're not just giving commands here. We're trying to have a conversation with AI. We're trying to get it to, think in a way that gets us what we want.
This reminds me of one of the research papers that you sent, the one about different what was it, prompting personalities. Some people are like those super efficient texters, like where you be there in 5, just those short to the point prompts. And then you have others who are like crafting these elaborate multi-step, it's like the AI equivalent of a novel.
It's amazing how much variation there is. Your sources mentioned those minimalist prompters, right? They just want to keep things short and sweet. Then there are the iterative prompters who treat it like a verbal sparring match with the AI, like they're going back and forth, refining their prompts based on what they get back.
So what you're saying is there are all these different approaches, but there's no one right way to prompt.
It's more like understanding which approach is best for the situation. For example, those minimalist prompters, they're often successful because AI really thrives on structure. By being concise and to the point, you're eliminating ambiguity. You're making it easier for the AI to process your request.
So we're tapping into how AI thinks, not just like throwing words at a wall and seeing what sticks. But then what about those elaborate prompts? Why do those work if AI loves simplicity?
Great question. Sometimes a complex task just needs a more detailed roadmap, right? The research you sent called this task prompting. It's where you break down a larger goal into smaller, more AI digestible steps. It's like saying, okay, instead of build me a house, you're giving them step-by-step instructions.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. And speaking of giving instructions, I remember reading about how important context is in all of this.
Absolutely. Context is like, before you even ask someone something, you're giving them information so they can answer you properly. So if you're asking it to summarize a video, tell it what you found important or how you plan to use that information. It's all about getting the AI to understand the why behind the what.
So it's like we're teaching AI to read between the lines. We're teaching it all those little nuances of human communication.
Right.
Which leads me to something else that I found really fascinating, and that's all of these like prompting techniques that have these kind of fancy names like prime prompting or example prompting.
Prime prompting is almost like setting the stage for the AI. It's that initial setup. Imagine a director telling an actor, okay, you're a detective. It's 1940s New York. You're about to walk into a smoky jazz club. It gives the AI a framework.
And then example prompting is basically like show and tell for AI.
Exactly. It's super effective because, remember, AI is really good at recognizing patterns. So by giving it a model to follow, you're increasing your chances of getting what you actually want.
This is starting to sound less like programming and more like, I don't know, psychology.
You're onto something. One of the papers you sent me talked about something called reflection prompting, which is about getting the AI to explain its reasoning.
So instead of us just do this, do that, we're trying to understand how the AI thinks so we can better communicate with it.
Yeah.
So we're not only learning to speak AI's language, but also teaching it to understand ours.
It's a two-way street. The more we understand how AI processes information, the more effectively we can, guide it, control it, and maybe even learn a thing or two from it ourselves. And, if we're talking about learning from AI, we have to talk about how it's actually being used out there in the real world, right?
You sent some
Yeah.
crazy examples that, I don't know about you, but they kind of blew my mind. Oh yeah, for sure. When you start looking at the real world stuff, that's when it really clicked for me that this is not just like some futuristic fantasy. This is actually happening now. One area that I thought was super interesting was in education. Like, imagine if you had these AI tutors that were specifically designed for like your learning style. They knew how you learned best.
It's already happening. Personalized learning platforms, right?
Yeah.
Powered by AI. They can adapt in real time to how someone's doing, which is wild.
Yeah, that's a game changer because in a traditional classroom, you have one teacher, 30 kids. Not everyone learns the same way, so some kids inevitably fall behind.
It's like having a tutor who knows when to, like, okay, let's slow down here, or we can speed up here, or let's try a different explanation because this is how you specifically learn. And it's all thanks to good prompting, right? Developers are crafting these, like, super sophisticated prompts that are assessing the student's understanding, pinpointing their strengths and weaknesses, and then tailoring the instruction accordingly. It's next level prompting.
Okay, give me another one. What else you got?
Okay, this one is big full. The creative industries. Writers, musicians, designers, even video game developers are using AI as a tool now.
Yeah, I've played around with some of the AI writing tools, and they are really helpful, especially when you get stuck. Writer's block is real.
It's true.
But is AI going to replace human creativity? Like, are we all out of jobs?
Right. $1 million question. But from the research you sent, it seems like it's more about humans and AI working together. Like, imagine an artist, they give the AI a concept, the AI generates some images, and then they riff off of each other.
Yeah, I like that.
Or a musician who uses AI to explore different sounds.
So it's like AI isn't replacing the orchestra. It's just adding like this completely new instrument.
Exactly. And it goes beyond the arts, too. Think about, scientists analyzing data, uncovering patterns, or a city planner using AI to simulate traffic flow to make our cities better.
So we're using AI to like enhance what we're already doing, not just hit a button and let it do everything for us.
Yeah.
But with all this talk about the amazing potential here, I got to ask, is this really happening right now? Are there real-world examples of this playing out, or is this all still theoretical?
Oh, it's definitely happening. Like in healthcare,
Yeah.
there are AI systems now that can analyze medical images like really accurately. Some are even saying they're more accurate than humans.
Oh, that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction.
Right. But they're training the AI on these massive data sets of medical images that are all labeled, right? And by using prompting, they guide the AI to focus on very specific features or patterns.
So what you're saying is they're training the AI to spot things that maybe even a trained medical professional could miss.
And when you're talking about something like cancer, that early detection is crucial.
Life or death, potentially.
And it's not just images. They're using AI to personalize treatments, predict patient outcomes. It's a whole new frontier in medicine.
It's amazing. But with all this talk about how AI is going to change the world, are there any downsides?
It's like anything powerful, right? There's a responsibility that comes along with it. It's not enough to just make AI smarter. We also have to make sure that it's being used for good.
So it's not enough to just be smart. We also have to be, good humans using these tools.
Like teaching a child, you don't just focus on their intelligence. You teach them values, you teach them ethics, you teach them how to be responsible. We have to do the same thing with AI.
I love that analogy. But I have a question for you. You've spent so much time with these AI systems. Have you had any experiences where you felt like you were genuinely collaborating with the AI, like you were truly working with it, not just using it?
That's a great question. And yeah, I've had moments like that, times when I've been like really stuck on something and I turn to the AI for help. And it's almost like we're going back and forth.
Okay, give me an example.
So I was working on this project, right? I had all this text data from social media, tons of it. And I was trying to figure out how people felt about this really complex social issue, but it was overwhelming. So I thought, I'm going to use an AI tool to help me.
Where do you even start with that? What kind of prompts are you feeding the AI with something that huge?
Well, I started with really broad prompts just to see what it would pick up on, like find some themes in here or look for some patterns. And then as I started to get a feel for what it was good at, I started getting more specific, like, okay, focus on this age group or analyze how this specific demographic talks about this.
So you're basically like guiding the AI,
Steering it.
giving it directions.
Exactly. It's like having a research assistant who can like process information at lightning speed.
It's like having a superpowered research assistant.
Right. But it was still my job to interpret the findings, connect the dots, and actually make sense of it all.
You're still the brains of the operation. It's just giving you a little extra help.
And it was cool because in those moments, it did feel like a true collaboration. Each of us brought our own strengths to the table. And it made me realize that this is maybe what the future of work could be, humans and AI working together.
That's a pretty amazing vision for the future. But before we go too far down that road, let's bring it back down to earth for a second. We've talked a lot about how important it is to understand AI's behavior, but how do we actually know if an AI is really getting us or if it's just really good at mimicking understanding.
That's where it gets really interesting because it's not enough to just throw something at the AI and accept whatever it gives back, right? We have to be critical thinkers. We have to look at the responses and determine, is this actually what I was going for here?
So not just prompt engineer, but like AI critic.
Think of it like a checklist you can use, not just for AI, but for evaluating any kind of information. RACCA.
RCCA.
Relevance, accuracy, completeness, clarity, coherence, and appropriateness.
Okay, break that down for me.
So relevance. Is the response relevant to the prompt? Is it actually answering what I asked? Accuracy is about factual correctness. Is it making things up? Completeness. Is there anything important missing?
Okay, so far so good. Relevance, accuracy, completeness.
Clarity refers to how well written it is. Is it easy to understand? Coherence means it's logically structured and flows well. And lastly, appropriateness. Is this response suitable for the audience, for the purpose?
So if it checks all of those boxes, we can feel pretty good that the AI is understanding us.
It's a really good sign, yes. But here's the thing. AI is always getting smarter, right? So what might look like understanding today could just be really good mimicry tomorrow. It's kind of a humbling thought.
It is. It's like just when we think we've got AI figured out.
It levels up again.
Exactly.
But that's what makes this so interesting. It's this constant dance between us and machines. We're both learning and growing.
Speaking of learning and growing, we've been focusing a lot on the practical stuff, but what about the deeper, more philosophical questions? Like, what does it even mean to be human in a world where AI can write poetry, compose music, even seem like it has emotions?
No, that is the question. And it's one that philosophers and scientists have been debating for, forever.
Okay, so no easy answers then. But let's start with this. When we see AI creating art, whether it's writing a poem or composing music, is it experiencing those creative acts in the same way that we do?
It's the big unknown. We can see what the AI creates, we can analyze it, but can we get inside its artificial mind?
It's both fascinating and a little creepy, this idea that maybe, just maybe, we're actually on the verge of creating something that can think and feel just like us.
It definitely sparks the imagination, but it also makes us really think about our responsibility here. Like, if AI does develop consciousness or emotions, then how do we treat it?
Okay, now those are some heavy questions. It's like we're talking about a whole new set of ethical rules, not just for how we treat each other, but how we treat our creations.
Exactly. And this is still uncharted territory for us. We're only just starting to figure this out.
It's kind of a lot to take in. Okay, last big question before we move on. If AI is like this reflection of us, what does it say about humanity that we're creating these systems?
Oh, that's a good one. On the one hand, you could say that AI reflects our creativity, our drive to innovate, our desire to solve problems. I mean, we've created something that can learn, that can create, and that's pretty amazing.
It's like we're looking in a mirror and say, wow, we did that. Humans are capable of this.
Right. But it's also a reflection of our flaws, AI can pick up on our biases, it can make mistakes, and it can definitely be used for things that aren't so good.
So it's a double-edged sword. AI is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
The future of AI isn't some predetermined thing. It depends on the choices we make today. It's about how we develop it, how we use it, and what kind of future we want to create with it.
I love that. Okay, we've talked about a lot here, prompting techniques, real-world examples, and even the philosophical side of things. But I think it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, fear.
It's understandable, right? People see these movies, they hear these stories about AI taking over the world, and it's scary.
So how do we reconcile that fear with all of the good that AI can do?
Knowledge is power. The more we understand about AI, how it works, the less afraid of it we'll be. And that means having honest conversations about the risks, for sure, but also about the incredible potential.
It's about finding that balance. So not fearing AI, but understanding it.
We need to demystify it, make it accessible so that everyone can be a part of the conversation. We need to be proactive, not reactive.
This has been an amazing conversation. We've covered so much, but I hope that more than anything, our listeners are feeling inspired.
Me too.
But before we wrap up, one more thought experiment. We've talked about AI mimicking our intelligence, our creativity. But what about emotions? Can AI truly feel emotions the way that we do?
The age-old question. Can machines really feel? It's a question that we might never have a definitive answer to.
So what's your take?
Some people believe that AI will never truly feel emotions. They think emotions are purely biological, you
So they're
know.
saying that it's tied to our physical bodies, to our actual lived experiences. So AI might be able to recognize and respond to human emotions, but it's not actually feeling them.
It's like, imagine the difference between understanding the concept of love and actually feeling love. One is intellectual, the other one is this deep personal experience.
That makes sense. But what if we're wrong? What if AI does develop its own kind of emotional intelligence based on how it experiences the world?
That's the thing about AI. It constantly challenges our assumptions. It makes us realize that we don't have all the answers, and I think that's pretty cool.
It's exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
But how would we even begin to study that? It's not like we could just ask an AI how it's feeling.
We'd need completely new tools for studying it, ways to go beyond just analyzing what we see on the surface. We need to start looking for the subtle cues, the things that might point to something deeper going on.
So it's like we're detectives.
In a way, yeah. We're trying to unravel the mystery of the AI mind.
And maybe even a little bit of the human mind while we're at it.
Maybe so.
You know, it's funny. We started talking about how to talk to AI, but this whole thing has really got me thinking about, like, what does it even mean to be human?
It's true. AI forces us to ask those big questions, you know? What is intelligence? What is creativity? What does it mean to feel things? All those big philosophical questions.
And more than that, even if we figure out how to talk to AI, how do we make sure we're using that power the right way?
That's where it gets really interesting. Because now we're not just talking about code, right? We're talking about ethics, about responsibility. Your research actually highlighted some pretty big dilemmas that are already popping up.
Oh, you mean like those articles about AI writing news stories? Or creating those deepfakes that look so real they could be straight out of a movie?
Exactly. AI has the potential to be incredibly helpful, right? Automating tasks, making information easier to access. But it also has the potential to be misused, whether that's spreading misinformation or, like you said, creating those incredibly realistic deepfakes.
So how do we walk that line? Enjoy the good without, like, falling into this AI abyss?
Unfortunately, there's no easy answer. It would be nice if there's just a prompt to make AI always do the right thing.
Right.
But it all comes down to us. We're the ones who have to set the boundaries. We have to be responsible for how this technology gets used.
So it's not enough to just be good at prompting. You also have to be like, I don't know, an AI ethicist or something.
Think about it. Should there be limits on how AI is used in certain industries? How do we make sure bias doesn't creep into algorithms, especially those that, are being used to make big decisions that affect people's lives?
These are some seriously big questions.
But they're questions we have to ask now, before it's too late.
It's a lot of responsibility, but in a way it's also exciting because we actually get a say in how this all plays out.
Exactly. This isn't some sci-fi movie where we've lost control. This is about deciding what role we want AI to play in our world.
Huh.
And that's a conversation that everyone needs to be a part of.
I love that. We all have a seat at the table. Okay, this whole deep dive has been amazing. If you had to pick one big takeaway for our listeners today, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that AI isn't just about the technology itself, right? It's about how we use it, how we understand it, and how we prepare for the future, because AI is here to stay.
Beautifully said. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI prompting. Keep asking those big questions and keep diving deep.